Hey, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon or evening for folks in Europe. Thanks for joining us. We have a great session planned for you. We haven't done one of these for a while, so we're excited to kind of share some news and updates with you. My name is Chris Hill. I'm with the marketing team here at Taqtile, and I'm joined with John and Joe that have some great news and updates to share with you. John's our founder and visionary behind Taqtile and Manifest. I think some of you out there know him. And Joe leads our business in North America. He has a ton of experience with customers, helping them think about where and how to start with Manifest. And it's quite a rare occasion to have these guys together. They're usually on planes or out at customers doing workshops. So I would encourage you all out there to just take this opportunity, ask them questions, leverage the expertise that we have here for the next few minutes. So let's talk a little bit about the agenda here. I expect that we have about 30 or 40 minutes of presenting and sharing updates with you, and then we'll have a ton of time for questions. So feel free to use that Q&A tab at the bottom, submit your questions. We'll cover them all. So I'll say up front that there's a lot of different experience on this webinar. There's folks that have been working with us for a long time customers, partners. There's new folks. So to kick things off, we're just going to share a few slides that might look familiar to some of you folks. We want to reinforce our mission, why we're here, what we're up to, how we're empowering the deskless workforce. And that's really about, capturing expertise before it disappears in these organizations, and then making that expertise available to the workforce and empowering these deskless workers. We'll talk a little bit about our products, and then really we'll move quickly into what we've learned recently and heard from customers, and then some of the innovation that we recently released to address your needs, their needs. And this is really about empowering the organization as well as the individual worker. So we're really thinking about how we can meet you where you are and how we can work with your existing workflows, work and plug into your existing software and systems, work on existing devices that you've already invested in, and really align both the work and the content with your existing business structures. So it's going to be a good session. So with that, let me turn it over to Joe.
Hey, everybody. Trying to get my camera feed up here, but I'm having some challenges. But I wanted to start you off with a scary stat. And I think you could look at it in two ways. I'm calling it a scary stat as it relates to business, as it relates to management, as it relates to the manufacturing floor, things like that. But, for people who are over 65, this actually might be a very joyous stat. It might be a happy time for them. But today, the way it looks in the United States is 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every single day. And that's a massive number. And as you look out to 2030, almost all are going to be 65 and up that are a part of that class. So what is this doing? One thing this is causing is challenges across lots of different industries. And the one thing that Taqtile here we're focused on is this highly technical and very complex task that's accelerating in industries. And then on the other side, you have a lot of skilled employees, these people who have been around for decades maybe, that are leaving the organization. So highly skilled employees are leaving the organization while tasks are becoming more and more complex. And this is affecting almost every industry that has deskless workers, up to 2.8 billion frontline workers. So what challenges is this causing? The challenge that it's causing is retirement and staff retention issues. How do you retain people in this environment when you have constant people walking out the door because of retirement, and also you have a skills gap that's being created because You have lower skilled workers coming into the organization. So retirement and staff retention is very much top of mind for people that we're talking to today. Also, reducing time to productivity with people walking out the door with lower skilled workers maybe coming into the door because they haven't been trained or maybe haven't been in an industry for a very long period of time. Productivity is critical. How do we get people productive out on the floor working or out in the field working in a shorter period of time? So time to productivity, how do we reduce the productivity? These are challenges that are top of mind. And then business as usual is not something that people we're talking to are able to do. You just can't continue to operate the way we've been operating. And what I always say is that nothing changes until something changes. So you can't expect a different result if nothing changes in the organization. So we need to find ways to enhance capabilities, and we need to find ways to use the tools of today. So directly from customers' mouth, as it relates to these challenges that we just talked about, how do we capture knowledge? It's top of mind. People are walking out the door. The knowledge is walking out the door today. So how today can we start capturing that knowledge so it's not lost? How do we make sure that people are doing procedures the right way? How do we reduce errors? Also, auditing and compliance. Auditing and compliance are important not only for continuous improvement, but also for any kind of potential audit that comes your way. You want to have a record of everything that's going on in the organization. And then improved speed and efficiencies and effectiveness. How quickly can we get people trained? How quickly can we get them out on the floor? And then lastly, and which is probably the most important piece, is how do we make sure that our employees are confident? Turnover happens when employees feel like they're left behind and they're not confident. They start to leave organizations because they feel like they're being neglected, they're not being trained, they're not being reskilled. These are all coming directly from our clients. So what have we done? We created a tool called Manifest. And it's a tool it's an all-in-one operational tool, and it's meant for the frontline worker. The frontline worker hasn't been traditionally given a lot of tools to be able to do their job. They have the more traditional tools that are out there, EAM, ERP, different learning management tools that are out there. But having a tool that's specific to them has been something that's been a gap in the software industry. And what are we doing? We're building in different intelligence. We're bringing in spatial content. We're making things device agnostic. We're also bringing in remote assist. So there's a lot of different things that frontline workers need to do their job in a modern world. So what is the modern worker? The modern worker, you have all the emerging technologies I just talked about. You need to find a way to capitalize on that. You have Internet of Things, you have streaming data that's coming in off of machines. What can you do with that data? You have artificial intelligence that's permeating almost every, faction of life. AI is being brought in, integrations. We're not the center of the world. There are lots of tools that are out there, and we need to be able to plug in. The modern worker needs to be able to plug into other tools that are out there. And then there's emerging technologies like spatial headsets, headwear, digital twins, a lot of this new spatial content. And then you also have traditional tools. You still need the traditional tools that are out there. You have process documents, you have SOPs, you have traditional manuals. Today this is digital content, but it's not necessarily digital content that you can get data off of. These are maybe PDFs. These are documents that are stored somewhere. But the real value in a lot of this, as you digitize it, is the data that you get as people are using this content. Enriched multimedia. This is an area that if you think about learning today, what do you do today as far as learning? Most people rely heavily on pictures, on videos. I mean, you think about kids that are out there today. How are they learning everything? They learn it from YouTube or from some of the different media sources that are out there, but there's audio, there's bookmarks, there's ways to bring in the traditional media where you can market specifically to a page versus having to rely on thumbing through this PDF or physical document. And then there's just a lot of expertise. So expertise can be shared in a lot of different ways. One of the ways you can share expertise is through remote assist, the ability to connect with someone anywhere. There are so many tools out there today that make it easy for us all to communicate. Let's leverage that in the enterprise. Let's make it easy in a see what I see manner to leverage that remote assist capability. And let's make it very easy for people to execute as well. And then lastly, I talked about the data. Well, some of the data that's out there today that would be considered traditional is not necessarily hasn't been maybe it's been turned into a PDF, maybe it's been digitized, maybe it's been quote digitally enhanced somehow. But the real power in this digital transformation is actually the operational data that you're getting off of the procedures. Faults, what's going on with work history, who did what, when did they do it, how long did it take them, what faults are they running into, what evidence are they leaving behind. All of this data is being collected for the modern worker, or should be collected by the modern worker. So all that said, these are some of the things that we see in the modern worker. It's also some of the things that we're seeing just industry-wide that are challenges. So what are customers asking us for? What are the needs that they're coming to, especially after they've been using our product? Is content creation. First and foremost, you have to have a good way to create content. You have to have a fast way to create content, because if you don't have the content, then you can't execute the work. You can't be more productive. There's so many different things that you can't do until the content is created. So how can we make it easier? Also, how do you make it work with what you have today? You might not have a headset. You might not have an iPhone. You might not have, an Android. You might not have these different devices. Everybody's got different devices in their hands. So how do you make it work with what they have today so we can solve some of these challenges of today with the tools that you have today as well? But then also look to the future of where things are going. Make sure you can work with what you have, but where are things going? How can we make it better in the future, as new devices are brought in? And then also it has to be very simple and organized. It's not simple and organized, people aren't going to use it. At an end user level, they need to see a benefit to them. If they can't see a benefit to them, meaning it's too complex, it's not organized well, it's not managed well, and people frankly are confused, they're not going to use it. So there has to be a very easy way for people to not only create content, use what you have, but also make it simple to manage and organize. Speaking of content creation, before we jump into a little bit of the show and tell part, which I'm sure everybody's excited for, go back. So I'm going to pass it over to John Tomizuka. He's going to talk about Manifest Maker and showcase some of the new innovations, and also talk about why Manifest Maker 2.0 was developed, and what Maker just in general was put together for develop, as well as some of the other tools that we have today.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry, I see where you were having a problem with video with this, but anyway, I managed to figure it out. For those of you who I already know, which there seems like there's quite a few, good to see you again. And those that I don't, nice to meet you. Thanks for taking the time out. So as Joe said, one of the key things that we have always focused on with Manifest is how we get content into the system in the easiest way possible. And maybe a year or two back, we came up with this concept of Maker, which has gone forward and at a pretty quick pace. And so now we're at Maker 2.0. And it's really all about making this creation process as easy as possible. It started with, how do we just get raw video? And allow people to cut video, do transcription, take the text from transcriptions, and create these really rich instruction sets. This has evolved, and maybe some of you have seen this, into using AI so that we can grab a video, have it actually create the steps automatically, and cut video to the exact spots where those different steps are relevant. In the future, we're going to be adding capability to bring in like your manual, which we do today. You can add bookmarks, etc. But we're going to be able to create instructions from the manual, which will be another evolution of this. We're also able to, as you probably know, you're able to OCR material that's not easily brought in. So it's really a Swiss Army knife for bringing in any kind of analog data that you may have and make it a digital instruction. Even creating 3D models, you can scan something without having a 3D model and bring that into Maker for further markup. We have a video I'm going to show here that is actually, it's a quick one with British Airways and how they're using Maker. So that's just kind of what it looks like using Maker to create instructions. It's a great tool. It's free also, so it's available. You can look at it at the Apple App Store. So beyond that, that's all about creating content in the easiest way possible. The other thing that Joe mentioned is having all this data work with what I have. This is just a statement about, customers have made existing investments into different platforms, whether they're software or hardware. And they just simply can't be abandoned overnight to take on something new. So we recognize that. And we've always kind of designed for working in those ways. And I'm going to show a couple examples of that. So the first example, we're going to talk about integration. We've always had an open API. I'm going to get a little bit more into detail about work we've done with Oracle and what that integration looks like. There's a lot of ongoing sort of evolution with devices and platforms, hardware platforms. We'll talk about that. And then we have a more recent partnership with the company HoloLight. We'll talk about how they're part of this scenario. So with Oracle, they have a product that is for facilities management, asset management. It's part of their Primavera group of products. We did an integration where Oracle is responsible for creating the preventative maintenance work orders. So in this graph, sort of at step one, that's all inside of Oracle. It's generating work orders, and then those are sent over to Manifest, where in Manifest, they're actually allocated or assigned to a particular worker. That could happen at step one as well. It's just kind of an option. And then at that point, the worker's actually going through the detailed instructions. So Oracle has a place where it can say, we want you to replace the compressor in this HVAC system. But there isn't like how to do that. And that's kind of what I refer to as like the last mile. Like okay, you've told me what to do, where to go, et cetera. But once I'm there, what is it that I'm doing? And so that's where Manifest drops in really well. We have all this rich media that we can share with the user, makes it very clear how to do something. As most of you know, we have a rich way of collecting evidence. So if there's a requirement to show that work is done a certain way, the user has to put in a video or photo evidence. That data is then transferred back over to Oracle. Also, in the case where we're creating faults, that typically happens in an inspection scenario. You're looking at something, there's an issue, there's a leak, there's a crack, there's some kind of item that needs further inspection or some kind of fix. Creating a fault in Manifest will generate an issue inside of Oracle, which can then create another corrective work order, which kind of sends this back into a loop in terms of allocating that, and that can go into another job, et cetera. But typically, in a normal case, the work is done, the job's complete, and then all of the data in terms of how long it took, et cetera, is archived in Oracle as the system of record. And then Manifest keeps its role as kind of the how-to last mile system of record. So that's how it works with Oracle. Really interesting integration with them. When we talk about working with devices that customers already have, this is a big challenge because particularly in the headset area, there's a lot of kind of platforms that come in and go away. I'm sure you guys are aware of recent developments with HoloLens and Magic Leap, et cetera. These are things that we're always looking at. The platform that we use is very much easily portable to new systems. So you'll see here there's some other systems that we're working with, from Meta Quest platform to DigiLens, and there's a few others that we won't mention here. And of course, we always have iPad and web as additional platforms that the system works on. On the Maker side, it's more of an Apple-specific platform. We chose this for several reasons. One is that it's actually the same platform that's running across iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Vision Pro. For the creation process, we thought that this was a much better platform. Part of the creation is creating 3D models. Apple has a great system for that. And it's just about sort of putting our best foot forward in this area. Again, Maker is a free tool that we make available. And so right now we're kind of focused on the Apple ecosystem with Maker 2.0. And then finally on this, we have a partnership with a company called HoloLight. And this is an interesting, it's also another platform. The work that's done in order to make our system Manifest run on HoloLight looks very much like porting to a new headset platform, for instance. But what it allows for our customers is it's kind of twofold. So one is it's like device insurance in some cases. So if you don't know if you're going to end up today using HoloLens and in the future using MetaQuest and in the next future using DigiLens, HoloLight supports all those platforms with one executable because it's actually running remotely. So our whole system is actually either on a local on-prem server or in the cloud, and all of the rendered imagery is happening on that system and being streamed down to the device. Meanwhile, the device is sending positional sensor data, any of the like sort of gestures, all that telemetry that is generated by devices, that's the part that gets sent back to HoloLight. So it still knows how to deal with your, hand gestures and things like that. It feels like it's running on the device, but it's actually not. So besides sort of the device insurance question, there's also the idea that the limitations in terms of what you can render on some of these devices. Basically, I won't say it's unlimited because I kind of hate it when people do that, but it's limited more by a server. So you're able to render much more complex models, which is important for some customers. And then finally, in the sort of very secure scenarios where our system is being used, sometimes there can be a requirement to have none of this data local on the device. And so HoloLight's also an interesting solution for that type of scenario. So making it simple to manage and organize. There's two feature sets I'm going to talk about that we've launched previously. Some of this may be kind of a refresher, but it's good to talk about and make sure that people understand that, because these are, I don't want to say they're under the covers types of things, but they're not super visible to end users in terms of, oh, what do we do with this? But for enterprise, very important features to launch. So the first one, this actually came out in Manifest 3.0, which I think was launched it's kind of a haze. I think it was March or April of this year. But the big thing with 3.0 was this, what we call editorial control. And the idea here, in a very broad sense, is kind of a top-down and a bottom-up approach. So the reason why we created this was so that management can make sure that they have compliance. This was actually done in partnership with Genentech, which is now called Lonzo. So they've had some changes, et cetera. But they're pharmaceuticals, so they have specific compliance requirements. So part of this is management, just making sure that this procedure, the latest one is the one that's being used, making sure that every change is recorded and versioned, and that every person responsible in the chain is understood. And then from the bottom-up approach, which is something we don't really talk about, but a lot of the gripes from operators in a lot of industries that we see is just like, oh, these bozos up at the top don't listen to us. They don't hear, like, we keep telling them you're doing it wrong, or, there's a better way. That is a very common frustration with operators and people in operations that we hear. This editorial control allows you to give them the opportunity to say, I've got a new way of doing this, or the way you're telling me to do this doesn't actually work. So they could actually say, here's how I would do it, make a draft, submit it, and then there's a chain by which it's actually put into production. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, but it's really nice when you start talking about how to engage people who kind of feel powerless, and you're saying, tell me how we can do it better. This video is pretty long, but basically we're just showing an overview of what this looks like. This is the web application showing how this changes things. So now a template or a procedure, instead of you just editing and saving it, and all of a sudden it's the published version for everyone, now you have to create a new version. It goes into a state called draft. And so someone would come in and add additional bookmarks or move steps around. So we have, I think this was also a 3.0 thing, a nice sort of drag and drop reordering of steps. And maybe there's an additional step I'm going to add. And so if you've had any experience with manifests in the past, you would save this. And then that was all of a sudden the published procedure. And then everyone would all of a sudden have this change. Now you have to submit it. And there's this opportunity once you're submitting it that you add in what's changed. So this is kind of like even with software, like, oh, here's version 2, added a step and moved steps around or whatever. With editorial control, there's now 2 different roles. So there's an approval role. So there's someone that can specifically be assigned to look at these changes, kind of stamp them that, yeah, these look good. This is typically an engineering group or something. So they can approve it. They can add additional comments. They can also add comments when rejecting it, which can happen. And then there's a final step and an additional role, which is called publishing. And that is all about actually putting this new procedure into production. So it's a different level of control, sort of saying, yes, we're going to put this in. You have an entire history of what's happening. And then your new jobs created based off of this now follow that new version. So I just want to show you real quick. This is what this looks like on the operator side. There's a little toast message here that says there's actually a new version available. So when they go to start the job, the operator has this option, hey, cancel this one that I was doing and recreate this job with the new procedure, the most recent one in place. So it gives you an incredible amount of control that you didn't have before, which is great. And this last one is just some screenshots of what this looks like in 3D. So very similar. You have a kind of an icon that changes. So you know in advance there's been a change. And then there's a call out that says exactly what changed. And then you're able to just cancel the old one and create a new one, or depending on your use case, you may want to complete the old one. But all this data is available so that essentially your enterprise has control over actually what's being done at the endpoint. So shifting to what we call orgs, this is new with Manifest 4.0. Again, this is not one that's super interesting to show visually. There's no 3D models popping out or anything like that as a result of this, but this has been kind of a long-standing issue. Some of you may know that when you create an asset class or a template, previously in Manifest, it was basically global. So every user, every operator was able to see that. With orgs, you optionally, this is an optional feature. If you're going to create orgs, you can, in a very flexible way, divide up and partition who's going to see what. So it helps manage and control. So if there's anything sensitive, there's that use case, which is this person can only see this type of equipment or this procedure. But there's also this key element, which while setting this all up and dealing with all the controls is quite complex, the real goal with this is to simplify for the end user who only works on this particular model in this particular location. All they're going to see is that, rather than globally everything that's inside the system. So this really allows large companies to implement this with security. So this is kind of what it looks like. This is just a screenshot in the web system. You have a drop down that then you're able to see all the different orgs. You can create, I think, 7 levels of organizational structure. And that will show here you're able to expand and see all the sub orgs, et cetera, in this listing if you have access. There's a separate admin area that is specific to setting up orgs. And then in this view, this is just showing there's some other like management systems here. So now I have the capability of saying, okay, this asset, I'm going to move to a different org. And then we make some choices and decisions and help you choose, okay, well, there's these couple of people who are already involved with this. Do you want to transfer them as well? So there's a lot of management tools here that are built so that you can manage this in an effective way. But essentially, after implementing orgs, each user has to know exactly which org they're assigned to, and all of these assets and entities and things like that have to be assigned to orgs, and that's what allows that division of data, really. This is what it looks like in the 3D client. So this is just a drop down. You'll see at the very bottom of the main menu, there's a new icon there that looks a little bit like an amoeba. I'm not sure, but when you look at it or you click on it, it shows what org you're currently using. And then if you select it and you have access to multiple orgs, you have a choice so that you can move around and see different views of data and equipment. On the iPad app, similar approach. You have an area at the upper left that shows you which org you're in and defines which data that you're seeing, and if you need to switch around, and again, if you have access to these different orgs, it will filter all the data by that particular org. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Chris, who's going to wrap up for us.
Okay, thanks, John. That was fantastic, and Joe as well. Yeah, just in summary, we hope we gave you a sense of what we're trying to solve at a very high level. Introduce you to a couple of products. If you haven't used Maker or Maker, specifically Maker 2.0, we encourage you to go check that out. It's free. It's on the Apple App Store. Again, it will work. If you just need an iPad or an iPhone, will work great on both of those. And of course, supports Vision Pro, as we showed as well. So tremendous amount of innovation there. I encourage you to go look at that. And then, a lot of this other stuff that John just covered, I'll just reinforce that, this came from direct customer feedback, and it's really amazing. John's been able to build this very nimble development team, and he's able to react to kind of customer need and requests, and we feel very good about that, and love enabling our customers. So with that, let's go to the next slide here. Let's see. No, there we go. Let's move to the Q&A, and we have a few QR codes here for you. If you want more information on editorial orgs or just generally on manifests, there's a ton of stuff on our website. We encourage you hit these QR codes. We do have ambitions and want to do these things on a more regular basis. We've done them kind of in the past periodically. We're going to try to do these every quarter and just keep you guys informed and give you an opportunity to talk to the team. Might not be the three of us, might be other folks, but we would love to hear from you and understand if this was helpful. So go ahead and hit that survey in the upper right-hand corner and let us know if you'd like to hear us talk about other topics, or you just have feedback, good or bad, on the webinar itself. We'd love to learn from that. So with that, looks like there's a few questions in here. I don't know, John, there's a couple around, as you see. Okay.
I'll take these ones from Eric. Thanks for the questions. So the one of the questions is, are Android tablets on our near-term roadmap? it's, some desire from his market for less expensive devices. So I would say, Eric, it's not necessarily on the near-term roadmap, and it's very much related to your second question, but I'll kind of answer both of those maybe. We, in our testing, have not found that the AR portion of the application runs very well on Android devices. And this is not, it's not saying that they're any worse. That's not the case. It's just that they seem to be tuned because of the kind of, I guess, multi-manufacturer nature of it. They're tuned for having like content dropped in your space, like gaming or, some sort of character or something like that. And that works fairly well. But for our use case where there's larger rooms and we're really worried about tracking versus showing digital content, like 3D content in the space, we have found that Apple's solution's better for, at least for our use case. I'm not going to say that, across the board it's just better. But that said, we're spending more time looking at browsers on these systems, making sure that they work and that they're up to speed. There is a job execution interface in our backend on the web, and it should work fine for those types of devices. One of the things we're considering right now is how we make that same interface available or optimized for phone size devices. So that's kind of where those sit right now. I think that was both of those. I mean, your second question, I've heard from that Apple's AR Kit is far better than Android's AR Core. Is that true for Manifest? I'd say it's true for Manifest. I wouldn't say, generally speaking, that it's far better. I think it's just it has more accuracy for our use case than we found with AR Core. There's another question in here. Says, I really like the new features, especially organizations. From this presentation, it looks kind of complex. How would you describe the learning curve on the admin side? Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there's a trade-off there for sure. Well, once you start using them, you're presented with like managing what users should be seeing what. I don't think that the learning curve in terms of setting it up is really that difficult. But I think that generally speaking, like just managing that, who needs to be seeing what, has an additional complexity that's just operational that adds a bit of overhead with that. So yeah, I won't say that it's made things simpler. There's a bit of complexity there, but I think it makes users happier and it's simpler for them. That's the trade-off, I guess.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is it depends on how complex you want to make it. We've built it in a way where it's almost like a Lego set where you can just build upon what you already built. And so you can start as simple as you'd like to. You don't need to use all these features that are in there. But some of the organizations, in fact, a lot of larger organizations, need a way to organize this data, have security parameters around who can see what. So these tools have to be in the platform. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to use them.
Good point.
So Joe, it looks like maybe another one that you could handle is just there's some questions around like what's the best way to get started? Maybe around use cases. What are the kind of the use cases you see some of the customers starting with, and then just how do they start engaging with us?
The majority of our clients today will start with some kind of operational training, typically on a piece of equipment. That's going to be typical. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. That's just the direction a lot of our clients have chosen to take first. A lot of reasons for that is just because of the problems we talked about during this presentation, is that, onboarding people, quickly upskilling them, getting them ready to work, getting them more productive. That's top of mind for most of the manufacturers and other industries with deskless workers. So they tend to start there. Other use cases, though, that we see adoption around are inspections. We talked about faults. So faulting, having the data, having the audit trail, making it dead simple for people to do it the same way every single time. That's an important thing for a lot of clients we're working for and with. So that's another one. And I think lastly is preventative maintenance. So maintenance that's being done consistently. Maybe you have a backlog of maintenance that's out there. How do you assign a new person to a preventative maintenance and make sure they're doing it the right way? So these are probably the two top use cases, but as you can see, there's a lot of different directions. Those would be the three I'd recommend if you're getting started. Is start simple, start with something we all can be successful together around, so you can prove it to whoever you need to prove it to. And we do have pilot projects or little quick start type packages that we can work together on. And that's just another way a good way to get started. Is we call it the Rapid Insights program. It's a way to jump right in, pick a use case, prove it out together, come up with some supporting documentation. So if there is a request down the road for additional funding to expand the program, typically you're going to need some kind of metric, some kind of proof to get that additional funding. So we work with you on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Chris, there's a couple more questions here. One says, I beta tested an early version of Taqtile while at Verizon. So he's a fan of the app, which is great. Thank you. And he says, if I want to work for Taqtile, help sell and present manifest to potential customers in the US, are you hiring and where's your career page? Which is great. I'll have Joe give you his email because we're always looking for great people. Let's see. Another one from Eric. So curious when you guys think the next wave of 3D devices will start to be available for potential customers who ask. That's been a really challenging one. So firstly, I'd say, HoloLens 2 is still going to be supported through 2027. At least that's the official word that we've got. That's, I guess, if you can get availability for those. The other thing I would say is there are new providers coming in, like DigiLens, who we're working very closely with to get a full release. We also have what's called an early access release on the MetaQuest store that anyone can download, and it's very comparable in terms of feature set. And I will guarantee you guys on this webinar that Meta has said that they're going to give front camera access, which is key for us to be able to scan QR codes and to do remote assist to kind of get this see what I see thing. Once they open that up, we are going to have that feature on MetaQuest as well. And then there's a couple of others coming that we know about that we can't really talk about, but there's some other coming. So I think 2025 is going to be an interesting year in the device front. Let's see.
Looks like another fan of the new orgs feature. Someone's just saying it's just a lot easier to manage larger groups of people. So I know we have a few folks from the dev team on it, so they'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback.
Do you have customers who are independent manifest users and developers who are hired by industrial organizations to do the work for them? I'm not quite sure what this one means. I think do we have independent service companies that do sort of the work of creating work instructions, et cetera, using Manifest? I'll let Joe answer that one. I mean, the answer is yes, but maybe you have a little more color for that answer.
Yeah, we have a whole partner network that we work with that we can recommend. We'll do some of that ourselves, but that's not our core competency. That we want to make sure that you're successful. So we're going to work with you. We have teams behind it. We have a delivery team. We have a services team. We even have a partner manager who you can work with as well. But we can make recommendations around that for people who could actually help you create that content long term. So absolutely.
Great. Let's see. Is there a vision to enhance video editing tool? We create videos, but we enhance. I mean, I think it depends. This question is about are we going to make enhancements to the video editing tool? I assume this is within Maker. We are definitely enhancing that all the time. I think the big enhancement that we've done lately is or recently is automatically making video clips. One ask we have there is to allow users to adjust that because, AI is not perfect. So instead of just making the clips, allowing the end users to adjust it. And then I'd say further into the future, things we're looking at, certainly like transcription and real-time translation, these kinds of things are super important. But depends actually, on what type of editing, like what level of complexity. I'd love to hear sort of what you use the external software for, and maybe those are things that make sense to include. Let's see. In Maker, how much does voice to text work if one is not native English? Does it work in other languages? Actually, there is in Maker, this question is about Maker and does it work in other languages besides English or someone who's not a native English speaker. I would say we haven't done a whole lot of testing with non-native English speakers. We've done that with the video part of it, so video transcription, and it's done actually really well. But if your voice to text is in a different language, in the settings for Maker, there's actually like a source language option. So, whatever language you speak, it will understand that it's looking for Spanish or French or whatever it is, and transcribe what you're saying in that language. So, yes.
That's great. Another kudos for the team. Cool. So maybe we should wrap that up.
Compliments for Andrea and Joe. That's nice.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, cool. So thank you guys for attending, giving us an hour of your time. This is recorded. We'll make it available to everyone that's attended and registered. And thanks again for your time.